Welcome to All Things Marketing Podcast, the podcast that talks all things marketing for both franchise and multi-location marketing leaders. ATM is brought to you by PureDriven. We'll show you how to turn your brand into a money-making machine. Here's your host, Steve Rockwood.
Hello and welcome to ATM. My name is Steve Rockwood. I'm the marketing manager at PureDriven. Today we are going to talk about what makes a franchise marketing agency unique. I am joined by my co-host, Chris Swanson, CEO at PureDriven. Chris, this is our first podcast together in about 5 days. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Steve. I came down with a little bit of a cold, so if you hear that in my voice, I'm not struggling too much. It kind of sounds worse than it is, but it's that time of year. You know, you get past the holidays without getting sick, and you actually kind of say, all right, awesome. So now it's just dumping in those vitamins, and my wife loves these essential oils. So we'll keep going, but it's going to be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I grew up in an essential oil family, so I know the feeling.
There's an oil for everything, right?
There is. My mom bought us a book for Christmas this year called Essential Oils for Cats, and it just has all of the recipes that you can use for cats with essential oils to keep them safe and healthy.
That is great, Steve.
Yeah,
they say if you're a cat lover, you really love cats. It sounds like your mom might really love cats.
My wife is the one that loves cats, but my mom loves my wife, so she buys her cat stuff. So
I see. There you go.
My wife has become the easiest person to shop for because cat stuff is everywhere. So it's a Christmas miracle. Well, today we are talking about what makes a franchise marketing agency unique. And Chris, since you are the CEO of a marketing agency that specializes in multi-location and franchise clients, can you just tell me, are there different types of marketing agencies out there?
Yes, the good marketing agencies, if you call them up and say, we do it all, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it should definitely stop, and it should make you stop and kind of ponder, do they? Because as we know, the old saying, jack of all trades, master of none, that's a real thing. And the franchise and multi-unit industry is very different than a lot of other businesses. And it's important that you have an agency, of course, that is very focused and specialized. We'll see some agencies where they say, well, we specialize in this area. And again, that's not a bad thing. PureDriven made the decision to focus probably about 98% of our work on franchise and multi-unit, simply because once we understood it, way back when we made that decision, it became really easy for us to, we call it not spin our head all the time. There was days when before that in our agency, you get a call from one client, you'd be talking to them about a retail environment, and the next minute you'd be talking to somebody about manufacturing, and then somebody would be talking about their service business. And we started to realize early on that that's not what we wanted to do. We wanted to be niche and specialist. And then on top of that, if you take franchise and brands that have multi-unit structure, what you run into is understanding the business model is very important. And a lot of people don't really ever understand that business model. A lot of agencies want to see a larger investment being made on a consistent basis, on a monthly basis. These smaller franchise stores don't have that capability. And so that's where the issue lies, is they just don't have the budget or the manpower, capability, knowledge to really do the marketing the way it needs to be done. So if you specialize and you come in and you focus on this, and then you have that manpower and you can make a really good process behind everything, you can keep those costs in line with the budgets that those customers need and make things happen.
Awesome. It makes a lot of sense. And that actually leads me into my next question for you. And that is, what makes an agency a great fit for a multi-location business? So what does that agency need to offer to make it work with multiple locations?
So we built a model after kind of learning this about 8 years ago, that one of the things that we had to be able to do is we had to be lean and mean and fast. And we had to have dedicated people who were very good at each marketing channel. So say Facebook, paid search, SEO, those kinds of things. Because what we had to do is have a team of people that could make changes in a very rapid fashion. And then, of course, put together events and make sure you're carrying the brand message from corporate down through everything. So that really matters, is that the agency is able to quickly do things. So if you're not getting callbacks, if you're waiting on things, you're not getting communication, that usually is what we hear people are upset about. And so that's a red flag for the client. And that's something you really got to be careful of if you're picking an agency. You want to make sure that they're that niche, they understand your business, and that they have the capacity, so to speak, to really quickly move to help you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And capacity is a big issue with agencies, especially when all of a sudden you try and drop 200 new stores on them. If they have to scramble to find the personnel to work those, that's going to be very difficult for them, and probably difficult for you to get your marketing looking good.
And we've seen that happen, right? And then as you bring in new business or just bring in business, there's usually a lot of cleanup that needs to be done online. I can go right now and look at a lot of different brands and find all kinds of things that aren't working, broken things, whether it's links or images or just old information, right? We see a lot of old information out there. And so, or social media platforms that haven't been posted on in many years or months. So those kinds of things really are important, that you can quickly scale, as you said, Steve, and take on business pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And then my last question for you actually on this topic is, a lot of agencies, if they didn't have the capacity for, let's say they got 200 new locations in and they said, sure, we'll work with you, they would probably attempt to do sort of a blanket national campaign on those stores because it's a chain, it's all the same. How important is local marketing when it comes to marketing agencies and franchises?
Well, it's a really tough nut to crack, but it's everything. And the only thing I'll say to that is, if you're advertising in Waco, Texas, and you try running the same advertising in Minnesota, you're going to have a real problem. And the real problem that you're going to have is there's differences in culture, there's differences in how people look at things, but there's timing issues as well in terms of weather. There's a lot that goes into that, and so you need to know every single local market. And the other thing is there's a lot of efficiencies with Google's algorithm and all the different algorithms, Facebook's, where they really enjoy when you're doing localized content. And that leads to better results for that particular store unit.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because actually one of the podcasts that you and I did about a month ago was national versus local marketing, and that's actually our most listened to podcast. So I just wanted to touch on that because I'm guessing a lot of people are interested in that.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because straight up, the issue that you run into is it's very hard to do it at a local level. It's a lot of people, it's a lot of capacity, time, resources, and it's hard to delegate and keep up with it. And I talk with brands all the time that say it would be so great if we could get to our local market and have that presence. We're within the local market, we're part of the community with our advertising, but our brand is still strong. And I say absolutely. And there are companies that have figured that out, agencies, and some are really good at it. But the issue comes down to, a lot of times they look at that, and usually what happens is within their corporate infrastructure, there's already positions and functions that they're afraid, because they've built that, they're afraid that they're going to have to eliminate those positions or do different things. The truth of the matter is you can work together collaboratively and do all those things, but it just takes an open mind and a good strategy and good planning.
It really does. Well, thank you, Chris. I think that's all we have time for today. If you are interested in learning more about franchise marketing agencies versus a different type of agency, just let me know and we can have a different podcast on a different day about that, or you can just email us directly and we'll talk to you about it there. steve.rockwood@puredriven.com, or visit us at puredriven.com and contact us there. Well, Chris, thank you for joining me, my friend, and thank you everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time right here on ATM.
You just listened to All Things Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to catch every new episode every day. Want to be a guest on the show? Sign up at puredriven.com/guest. See you tomorrow here at the ATM.